Hi everybody, welcome to this video. We're very lucky today to have Kate Wood, who is the inclusion lead at HSBC Hong Kong. Kate, do you want to maybe introduce yourself and kind of describe what your role is at HSBC?
Sure, thank you. So I'm the inclusion lead at HSBC Hong Kong, as you said. So my role covers our 20,000 employees here in Hong Kong. So make sure they feel a sense of belonging at work, but also looking after our customers, our communities, and creating a culture of belonging.
Okay, and so the kind of ESG framework, often if we think about the S and the social, and we've discussed in this program how this course, how it's often difficult to kind of define. It's a little more the esoteric area of ESG currently. But one of the core parts of it is DE&I and kind of inclusion in terms of language and policies, et cetera. What does that mean to you, I guess, personally, but also in your role at HSBC? How are they integrating diversity, equity, and inclusion into the role internally? You mentioned your customers as well. Like, it seems like a pretty big framework. So maybe if you can kind of describe that for us.
Yeah, definitely. I think across the industry, the financial services industry in particular, we're seeing this focus on not just the E and the G, as you mentioned, but how do we implement the S in the workplace? The S is typically all about people and planet, and so D&I fits really neatly into that. And often what we find is that DE&I is one of the most trackable metrics within the S. So when it comes to year-end reporting, it's very easy mechanism for organisations to report on that society element. I think also with investors doing due diligence on companies around their human capital strategies, it's a really good opportunities for organisations to take that first step in the S through DE&I.
So that sounds great, and I can understand kind of the quantifiable nature of it. But from a definitional standpoint, what are they quantifying, and how? Do you define that internally? But more importantly, what does that mean in terms of creating an inclusive or sustainable workplace? I mean, I don't think what you're implying is that it's a box-ticking exercise or something where it's just because of like reporting metrics externally. How do you kind of like win the hearts and minds of people within the organization and kind of have them see how this is a way to kind of bring them closer together as an organization?
Yeah, I think to your point around box ticking and reporting specific numbers, obviously that's the diversity element of DE&I and ensuring that we have a representative workforce and community so that we've got representation across different groups, whether it's gender, ethnicity, sexual orientation, disability, or even different socioeconomic backgrounds. But obviously we're moving beyond just the representation piece. So to make an impact for the wider community or society, you have to have that sense of inclusion so people actually feel like they belong in the workforce. So the E, the equity, that's where you have to make sure that those representative groups actually have access to opportunities to thrive. So recognising that people come from different backgrounds and they'll have different levels of access to opportunities. So then perhaps providing that additional step up to let there be an equal playing field. And then the I is obviously the inclusion. So, okay, you've got great representation of women, but then do you have policies, guidelines, support systems in place to make sure they're supported throughout the different life stages, whether it's their menstrual cycle, menopause, pre and postnatal. So by having that sense of inclusion in your workplace, that will have a knock-on impact for then the communities that you operate in.
Okay, are there maybe some examples to provide some context for maybe some of our participants who don't necessarily have the same kind of semantics around DE&I? What would be an example of, in the diversity area, in terms of equity and in terms of inclusion, things that maybe programs that you run or things that you've done internally at HSBC or elsewhere in order to kind of drive these specific elements?
A very high-level example, coming back to gender, which I suppose is the biggest representation you're going to have in the workforce, is if you're looking at getting more women into senior roles. Most if not all organisations, will track the gender of their employees, so whether they're male, female, trans, non-binary, so they can see that representation. But then what many organisations find is that they might have an even split of men and women, but perhaps the female representation will be higher at the more junior levels, and often that's because they'll take time out of work for caregiving responsibilities, whether it's for children or in Hong Kong with our ageing population, perhaps elderly parents. So then making sure, again, at work, you've got those equitable policies or support systems in place to make sure that women have the same access to opportunities. So if you have a man and a woman going for the same role, but the woman's taken 2 years off, how is she having access to the same opportunities to get the same representation at those leadership levels? And you can employ those kind of techniques no matter the size of your organisation. So whether you're a small hedge fund with 10 employees or an international bank with 20,000, it's also important to note then that knock-on impact to customers. So obviously for us at HSBC, half of our customers will be women as well. So how can we offer products that will better serve them, whether it's additional financial literacy training, investment tips, etc. And then also for your communities, so collaborating with charities. There are so many amazing charities in Hong Kong, a lot that intersect across the different DE&I pillars as well. So working with organisations that might support ethnic minority women, creating pipelines for them to access your workplaces as well.
Mm.